Right. So, we've been looking at, I'll put this over here so that you have that space there. So I confine myself to a little, angularly confine myself to the corner. So, so we looked at how these different angular confinement patterns can work. And, you know, with the fourfold symmetry, you have angular confinement. You have another type of confinement, which is elliptical confinement. You have continuous movement and variable velocity. So angular confinement confines the line within a box, within a gridded system, within a series of plane-sided figures. Elliptical confinement removes the plane-sided figures and augments it into curves. Continuous movement is probably one of the most important things you can learn. And it's funny, when I was working on the manual, with the minuscules, I was able to use the continuous movement minuscule structure in tandem with the variable velocity structure. So when you look in the manual at the minuscules, you'll see that it's the whole continuous movement and the variable velocity embedded in the same structure. So they are sort of one and the same. Now, continuous movement presupposes that you understand that everything is one line. When you're writing the letter B, what you get is you get this. So remember, you're always starting on the baseline. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, and 10. So that takes you to the minuscule. So what you're seeing is this. And what actually happens is that. So equally with the flourish, especially the 18th century flourishes, we have the elliptical movement. And you know, I know a lot of you sometimes practice, and obviously lots of you do this. You just sort of pick up a blank piece of paper and you start to write. And then you post that nonsense on Instagram. And when you look at it, obviously it's not straight. The lines aren't working, the letters aren't the same height. There is no way to align something if you don't have a line. Once you have a line, you have a system. So you start by aligning it to something. So some of those words that we looked at, so in my teaching material, I did a list of things that people have to be conscious of. Where is it? Okay. And so some of the things we have to look at are alignment, contrast, repetition, consistency, proximity, balance, space, simplicity, distribution, movement, visibility. And all of that works when you have something to align it to. So we're going to grab some of the flourishes, one of the basic flourishes, and we are going to align it to the top. And we're going to make it smaller. Now, like I said earlier on, this is where it starts to get a little bit more difficult because you don't just have two lines. So we have this line, we have this line, we have this line. We have 1, 2, 3, and 1. So this flourish, this central bit, is aligned to this line. And then we go there, and 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 there. From here, we could back out of this flourish. So this comes here, this can go there, this can go all the way over and back down and across. So we could actually make this follow the same structure. But again, it means thinking out of the box or opposing the box, as we've done here. Because you would think that this would do this, and then go across and then down and back on itself. So remember with the cube, we did this, and 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 that, and that. So the confinement doesn't come down and then go across and back up. So it's not a literal, it's not an angularizing of the letter literally. Hence, it's not necessarily the same thing with the flourishing, but you sort of start to see what's happening. Now, we have this, we have this, and we have this. Can you see the relationship of the angles? So this and this so you have to see beyond what you're accustomed to see. You are looking here, and I'm looking for a focal point. And the focal point exists outside of this box. So when it comes to, and then of course, you know, we have one, let's get the black marker. So we have 1, 2, 3, a half, 4, 5, 6. These are smaller, but look at the relationship of here to here, half, and then half, and then half, and then half. And a third and a third. So you really start to see how this works. Now, let's look at this 18th century flourish. How does that flourish work? Need a little bit more space there. So that flourish works based on this. So I'll post this in the group. Yeah, but you know, if you just make sure you're paying attention to it, because it'll be in the group. So let us think of, so we have a word here. We want to fill this space here. Okay? So we have all of this space to fill. So we have So now I'm going to take the word out and I'm going to fill that space as well. So I'm moving, and if I run out of ink, I go to the pot, and I dip, and I tap, and I come back, I go back to the flourish, and I go back. So at no point am I stopping. So I've stopped, but my arm's still going. So if I decide, I just want to add something else to this, I can add that.
Can you restart if you have stopped?
Yeah, so if you stop, because you might need to shake your arm out. If you stopped, what you do is you just sort of breathe. Start over with the principal flourish. Well, you have to remember less is more. I know sometimes more is less, but in this instance, less is more. So when you look at this flourish, it looks confusing. Because you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, where do you start with this? So you have to find the starting point. So you can see that somehow this looks more solid. So there's stuff built around it. So where is the starting point? Is it here? Would you do this? So if you try to do it, that's quite a difficult movement. So something's wrong there. So let's we're here. So let's start here. And don't just trace it with your finger. Hold the tool like you're holding a pen. And that feels quite natural.
So I've noticed you have your whole body engaged in this process.
Yeah.
How does that work when you're sitting down?
So when I'm sitting and I'm doing this kind of flourishing, I'm breathing more deeply. And so I'm going in. So I'm using another device to generate this movement. Because remember, as you inhale on the upstroke, you want the tool to produce a lighter line on the upstroke. By inhaling on the upstroke, you're not going and so there's a bit where you're in free fall. So you're up there. The tool doesn't stop because you're in free fall. It goes up and over the apex and over and over and over and down and around and up again. So you're using the breathing to help you produce the flourish. And of course, at no point is this fast. In fact, it's probably slower than you can write slowly. It just looks like it's fast because there's all these lines. But look at the balance. Look at the space. If we start splitting up the space, this is where we start. So we have verticals and diagonals. Now we could go straight across, straight down, but I would prefer to start boxing this in. So this would have to come. I would probably even bring this all the way down here. So we see two different structures. We see a vertical and a diagonal, and we see two sets of diagonal lines. But once we keep within the rules, look how these lines are matching up with this. So even though we have a vertical and diagonal, this diagonal is one of the principal lines here. I've not introduced an entirely separate line. What I've done is I've removed one line, I've kept this angle, and I've introduced a 90-degree line. Now, let's look at the appendages. So if we look at the appended flourishes, good line up here. Let's do the appendages in black. This is a little bit of a problem. Here. And so that's the angular confinement for the flourish, which looks even more confusing. But you start to see where the lines are and why they are where they are. So what I would suggest you do, those of you who have glasses on, take them off. Those of you who don't have glasses, squint or pitch your eyes out of focus. And what you'll see is you'll see the angles, but more importantly, you'll see the relationship of the space. Because remember, it's not what you write, it's what you don't write that's important. So the non-writing, blank page is there. You are putting writing on something that already exists, on the non-writing. So how do you enclose the non-writing with writing and still allow the non-writing to look balanced? So you have to use, so this geometric principle is so amazing, it's so different, and it really gives you a system to work with the flourishing construct. Question? No? No? Okay, so I expect you to do this now. So what I want you to do is, I want you to produce a flourish. I don't care what it looks like. Obviously I care what it looks like. But it doesn't matter if you mess it up. In fact, if you mess it up, that's great, because it will give us something to work with. It will help us to see where you are struggling with this flourishing construct. You only have one chance to do this flourish. So it's up to you if you're going to mess it up, or if you're going to plot it, if you're going to just go ahead and do it, because I'd like to move on to the tools after that, okay?
Oh, Raphael! Hello! I think this is so amazing, because once you look outside the box and you see this focal point, you're just like, oh God, it's so far away. But you really start to see the relationship of the angles to each other. So because this is related to this and to this, this is related to this and to this, the relationship of this to that, it really stands out. Anyway, all right. I'm going to get back to my class. So these two videos, which will stay on live for 24 hours, will live in the PA Scribe Calligraphy Classes group. So if you want to see them, please join the group. And don't forget to buy the Shopify the EPUB of the manual. All right. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.